Over 130 million Americans eat industrial chicken every single day. But what if the chicken you're feeding your kids wouldn't even be allowed into Europe? In 2025, the European Food Safety Authority, the Clean Label Project, and multiple national watchdogs across the EU reconfirmed bans and heavy restrictions on a growing list of poultry products and additives that are still proudly sold in U.S. grocery stores. The same nuggets, tenders, rotisserie birds, and meal kits that line our shelves are often filled with substances that Europe considers unfit for human consumption, linked to kidney failure, hormone disruption, immune suppression, and cancer. Yet they're still being marketed here as natural, clean, and even family-friendly. How did we end up being the dumping ground for what another continent refuses to touch? Why are American families, especially our children, seniors, and the working poor, eating food that wouldn't pass a customs inspection overseas? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Today, we reveal 10 industrial chicken products banned in Europe, but still eaten in America every single day without warning. You won't look at your freezer the same way again. Number 1. Tyson Foods. You've probably tossed a bag of Tyson grilled chicken strips into your grocery cart without blinking. They sit there in the freezer aisle like a trusted old friend, ready to toss into salads, layer into wraps, or stretch out dinner on nights when the bills are due, the gas tank's on E, and you're just too tired to cook from scratch. The packaging screams all natural, fully cooked, and packed with protein. For families running on fumes and retirees watching every nickel, Tyson promises the impossible: convenience, affordability, and health, all in one tidy, microwavable bag. But what if that promise was built on something the rest of the world already rejected as too dangerous? Here's what most Americans don't know. Tyson chicken has been banned from Europe, not recalled, not restricted, but outright banned since the late 1990s. The reason? Chlorine washing. While Tyson and other U.S. producers routinely dunk raw chicken in chlorinated water to kill bacteria, the European Union slammed the brakes on that method decades ago. Their position is clear: no amount of chlorine can make up for filthy conditions at the start of the process. It's like spraying perfume on a dumpster and calling it fresh. The shock doesn't stop there. In 2025, the European Food Safety Authority warned that chlorine-washed chicken often signals deeper problems, like unsanitary facilities and overworked staff. And it's not just overseas watchdogs sounding the alarm. The U.S. Government Accountability Office found over 1/4 of domestic chicken plants repeatedly violated rules for fecal contamination, even after chlorine treatments. That's not food safety. That's a dirty cover-up. And then there's Tyson's obsession with speed. Their plants are still slaughtering up to 175 birds every minute. Imagine that, 3 birds every second. Former USDA inspectors have gone on record saying there's no way to properly check for disease at that pace. But hey, if Wall Street wants more chicken per minute, who's going to argue with a stopwatch? Even worse, the chickens themselves may be fed additives like roxarsone, an arsenic-based drug banned in Europe, but still used in parts of the US. A 2024 petition by the National Consumers League called for the FDA to intervene, citing new studies linking these additives to hormonal disruptions in older adults. But Tyson's label still reads 100% natural, because in the US that phrase means absolutely nothing about how the chicken was raised, only that it didn't get artificial ingredients after it was already processed. It's marketing sleight of hand, not honesty. Now let's be clear, Tyson isn't the only one playing this game. When government regulators are stretched thin and corporations are writing the rules, even the most well-meaning brands may take shortcuts. But if Europe slammed the door shut on this chicken almost 30 years ago, why are our school kids and grandparents still eating it every day? For those ready to walk away from the chlorine, there are cleaner alternatives. Whole Foods, Sprouts, and even some local butchers offer chicken raised to European standards. No chlorine, no banned drugs. Brands like Applegate Organics have earned the Clean Label Project's approval in 2025 for keeping the junk out. And if you're cooking at home, you don't need a chemistry set to sanitize your chicken. Just use salt, lemon, and vinegar like your grandma did. But here's what we really need to ask ourselves. How many more marketing slogans will it take before we stop mistaking fast and cheap for safe? And when did we decide that being American meant eating what Europe throws away? Number 2, Pilgrim's Pride. Pilgrim's Pride has worked hard to earn a spot at the center of American dinner tables. It's the go-to chicken for families shopping on a tight budget, the one piled high in Walmart bins and handed out in cafeteria trays from Alabama to Idaho. You've probably eaten it without thinking twice, maybe as nuggets at your grandkid's birthday, or shredded into soup when you were down with a cold. The label says, responsibly raised, and to the average shopper, that feels like a promise, a warm hometown company that wouldn't dare cut corners. But what if the hometown chicken was actually helping to breed bacteria that medicine can no longer kill? In April of 2025, a report from the Environmental Working Group and Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health cracked the shell wide open. Over 71% of Pilgrim's chicken samples taken from grocery stores tested positive for antibiotic-resistant bacteria, some of the worst strains out there. We're not talking mild germs here. These were Salmonella Heidelberg and E. coli strains that don't flinch at modern antibiotics. According to the World Health Organization, they're labeled high risk for a reason. They can turn a minor infection into a medical emergency. And what's even more disturbing, Europe already banned this game. Since 2006, the European Union has forbidden the use of antibiotics as growth promoters in livestock feed. If you try to sell a chicken in Europe with any trace of those drugs, the answer is simple: no entry. Meanwhile, in the United States, Pilgrim's Pride continues using feed additives that push weight gain faster, even if it means helping bacteria outsmart medicine in the process. A leaked USDA memo from March 2025 made things worse. It showed that inspectors repeatedly found drug-resistant microbes at 6 of Pilgrim's plants. 3 of them had been cited for similar issues just a year earlier. The memo warned of a disturbing pattern of resistance starting from the earliest life stages of the chickens. In plain English, this isn't accidental contamination, it's systemic. And if you think this only matters to farmers or scientists, think again. Antibiotic resistance isn't just a buzzword, it's a ticking time bomb for older adults. A cut finger, a UTI, or a dental infection that used to be no big deal might now send someone over 60 straight to the ICU. When the antibiotics stop working, the whole system starts to crack. Pilgrim's Pride already paid the price, at least in court. In February of 2024, they shelled out $29 million to settle a class action lawsuit. The claim? That they labeled their chicken no antibiotics ever while using ionophores, a category of antibiotics banned in Europe. And under US law, thanks to loopholes and murky definitions, they got away with it for years. One consumer group said it best: they weren't lying outright, they were banking on confusion. To be fair, Pilgrim's isn't the only bird in this broken coop. Our labeling laws allow half-truths, our inspections lack teeth, and our regulators play catch-up while the chicken industry races ahead. Pilgrim's Pride isn't just a company, it's a reflection of a system where cutting corners is more profitable than telling the truth. But here's the real heartburn. If Europe doesn't trust it, why are we feeding it to our kids? Why are we calling it clean when the same meat wouldn't pass border control in Brussels? If you're ready to break the cycle, try brands like Bell & Evans, no antibiotics, no nonsense, and third-party verified. Even Kroger's Simple Truth Organic offers a cleaner option. Local co-ops often carry certified humane or global animal partnership step 4, poultry that lives up to the hype. Still, not everyone can swing the higher price tag. And that's the real crisis, when honesty costs more than spin. So maybe it's time to stop trusting the front of the package and start asking, how long before another no antibiotics label turns into the next public health disaster? Number 3, Purdue Farms. Purdue wants you to believe you're buying chicken from a neighbor with a moral compass, not a corporate boardroom. The packaging looks like it came straight from a family farm. Rustic fonts, smiling farmers, golden brown meat glistening under promises like no antibiotics ever and humanely raised. It's the kind of branding that makes a person feel safe, especially for older adults or struggling families. Purdue feels like the dependable choice, easy to cook protein, pre-seasoned and tender, that fits into both weak hands and tight budgets. But peel back the layers of good intention, and what you find inside might leave your jaw dropped, and not just from chewing. In early 2025, the Clean Label Project raised alarms after finding dangerously high levels of phosphates in Purdue's pre-marinated and ready-to-cook chicken lines. These phosphates aren't sprinkled in like salt. They're injected deep into the meat to lock in moisture and fake freshness. Sound harmless? The European Union doesn't think so. Since 2023, any poultry product with more than 1,000 milligrams per kilogram of added phosphates is outright banned from being sold in the EU. But Purdue's birds? Some were clocking in over 1,400 with 0 front label warnings. And if you think that's just some bureaucratic red tape, think again. The European Renal Association published studies in 2025 linking high phosphate intake from processed meats directly to kidney decline, brittle bones, and heart stress, especially in people over 60 or those with high blood pressure. That means the very folks leaning on Purdue for ease and nutrition may be unknowingly fast-tracking chronic illness, one tender bite at a time. Even worse, a joint expose by Reuters and the Center for Science in the Public Interest blew the lid off in February 2025. It turns out Purdue uses phosphate solutions even in products labeled minimally processed and natural. In America, if the chemicals are added during the so-called enhancement phase, they can be tucked into fine print or not mentioned at all. To a shopper with failing eyesight and a pill case full of kidney meds, that's not fine print, that's a blindfold. And behind the factory curtain, a whistleblower report from 2024 described a system that rewarded over-injecting chickens to squeeze more weight and profits out of every bird. The result? Meat so pumped with liquid it leaked onto factory floors, causing injuries from slippery surfaces. Apparently, even the floor couldn't keep its grip on what Purdue was selling. Here's the kicker. Purdue claims they're EU export ready, but that only applies to the raw, unseasoned stuff. Their marinated, flavored, and ready-to-cook offerings, the ones flooding American shelves, wouldn't even get past airport customs in Europe. So we're stuck in the same twisted cycle. The cleaner the label, the dirtier the secret. We see natural and think safe, but what's really hidden in that glossy clamshell tray? An invisible chemical bath that our bodies can't easily flush out. To be fair, Purdue isn't necessarily breaking rules. They're just playing the American game, a game where appearances win shelf space and truth gets buried in the margins. In a system where fine print vanishes under fluorescent lights, companies are rewarded for dancing around what other nations would never allow. If you're ready to eat smarter, look into Mary's free-range chicken or butcher box. Both are transparent about ingredients and skip the phosphate injections entirely. Trader Joe's all-natural thighs have tested well within EU limits too. And for those watching every penny, go for raw, unseasoned cuts. Avoid anything labeled enhanced, marinated, or flavor-infused. Roast it yourself with garlic and lemon. It may take 10 minutes longer, but your kidneys will thank you. Now think hard. Is that juicy texture really worth the cost to your health? Or are we just chewing our way through another American illusion, one phosphate-laced drumstick at a time? Number 4. Sanderson Farms. For years, Sanderson Farms was the chicken brand of the working class. No fluff, no greenwash packaging, no sky-high prices, just big bags of frozen drumsticks, discount packs of wings, and supermarket bins that made SNAP dollars go the extra mile. Their slogan, "No nonsense, just chicken," sounded like a handshake from one honest American to another. It was the bird you could trust until you learned what was inside it. Because beneath that tough guy charm lies something Europe won't even let near its ports, a drug called ractopamine. In 2025, documents released under the Freedom of Information Act confirmed that Sanderson, and now Wayne Sanderson after their merger, continues using ractopamine-based feed to bulk up its broiler chickens. Ractopamine isn't just another feed additive. It's a beta-agonist drug originally developed for human asthma treatment, but later dropped due to serious side effects like heart palpitations, hormonal imbalance, and tremors. So why is it showing up in chicken? Because it makes them grow faster, bigger, and cheaper. And in America, that's still legal, but not in Europe. Not since 2009, when the European Union banned ractopamine under Regulation EC number 96/22. In 2025, the EFSA didn't just uphold the ban, it made it louder, stating unequivocally, meat from animals treated with ractopamine shall not be permitted for sale or import under any circumstance. Meanwhile, in the US, there's no requirement for poultry producers to disclose its use, meaning Sanderson doesn't have to tell you, even if the meat you're feeding your kids or aging parents has been enhanced with a drug deemed unfit overseas. A March 2025 study from UC Davis sent more chills down the aisle. Researchers found ractopamine residue in 13% of chicken samples from Sanderson-linked stores. That might be under US safe limits, but would immediately disqualify the same product from entering the EU. So what's considered safe here is considered unacceptable elsewhere. Who gets to decide which definition matters? Even more troubling, a whistleblower from a Sanderson facility in Mississippi shared a leaked memo that instructed line workers to overlook classic signs of ractopamine stress in chickens: aggression, spasms, collapsing from overgrown muscle. Unless the bird died before inspection, it was processed. Just imagine, meat from an animal so overstressed it could barely stand, ending up in nursing homes and school lunches. That's no longer just chicken. That's a business model built on silence, and that silence runs deep. Sanderson is one of the biggest suppliers to institutional buyers, where oversight is thin and consumers have little choice. Prisons, military bases, senior centers. If this meat isn't good enough for a Paris supermarket, why is it good enough for your granddad's dinner tray? But to be fair, Sanderson isn't breaking any laws. In a system where plumpness is profit and disclosure is optional, they're playing by the book, even if it's a book Europe threw out 15 years ago. So what can you do if you're tired of guessing what's in your chicken? Seek out labels that specifically say ractopamine-free. They're starting to pop up at Fresh Thyme, natural grocers, and smaller chains. Pasture Bird and Blue Valley Meats proudly avoid synthetic growth agents altogether. On a tighter budget? Look for air-chilled cuts and no-growth promotants wording at Aldi or co-op butcher shops. The difference may not be flashy, but it's real. Because in the end, this isn't about legality, it's about trust. If Europe draws a red line, and we don't even draw a dotted one, what does that say about the meat we're feeding the people we love most? Number 5. Costco Kirkland. The Kirkland rotisserie chicken is practically an American institution. That shiny golden bird greets you at the end of your Costco run like a $4.99 trophy, hot, hearty, and big enough to feed the family twice, maybe even 3 times. For seniors watching every penny or folks balancing bills and blood pressure, it feels like a small miracle, a juicy, ready-to-eat meal that tastes like comfort without emptying the wallet. Costco calls it the best deal in retail, and for many it is. But let's ask the one question no one wants to. How does something that cheap taste that good? In January of 2025, the Clean Label Project dropped a truth bomb. An independent audit revealed that the Kirkland rotisserie chicken contains elevated levels of monosodium glutamate, better known as MSG. While not banned in the US or Europe, MSG is a red flag ingredient in countries like Sweden and Austria, where it must be clearly labeled and is limited in foods aimed at children, seniors, and those with health risks. That's because MSG isn't just seasoning, it's an amplifier. It makes food taste more savory, more crave-worthy, and more addictive. And that's exactly the point. But here's the kicker. In the US, Costco isn't required to clearly list MSG on the front. Instead, it hides in plain sight under vague terms like spices, flavorings, or worse, natural flavors, a legal loophole upheld by the FDA's 2025 guidelines. If MSG is part of a pre-mixed seasoning, it can legally skip the spotlight even when the seasoning is loaded with it. For consumers, especially older adults with heart conditions or metabolic concerns, this isn't just fine print, it's a health blind spot, and it gets worse. A peer-reviewed study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that same year found that adults over 60 who regularly consumed MSG had a higher risk of developing metabolic syndrome, a cluster of conditions including high blood pressure, weight gain, and insulin resistance. In lab models, MSG even lights up the same brain receptors tied to addiction. So that irresistible, just one more bite feeling? It may not be coming from your hunger, it may be coming from the seasoning itself. The problems don't end with the spice rack. In March 2025, NBC News reported that Costco's Fremont, Nebraska poultry plant, the main supply line for these rotisserie birds, had failed multiple wastewater tests over the past year. Violations included nitrogen and phosphate runoff levels that would trigger environmental action in the EU. That golden chicken isn't just hard on your kidneys, it's not so easy on the planet either. Even more troubling, Costco has never publicly confirmed whether their rotisserie chickens are raised without antibiotics. While their raw chicken line flaunts the no antibiotics ever label, the rotisserie birds are a mystery. When Reuters pressed for clarity in April, Costco replied, "All Kirkland poultry meets USDA requirements." Translation? You're not getting a straight answer. To be fair, Costco isn't McDonald's. They're not selling junk for quick cash. They're trying to offer affordable meals at scale. But somewhere along the line, convenience overtook clarity. Flavor outpaced transparency. And that $4.99 deal? It's not just cheap, it's subsidized by additives, legal vagueness, and environmental shortcuts. If you're ready to switch, Whole Foods offers an herb rotisserie chicken made without MSG or antibiotics. Chains like Heinen's and Fresh Market season their birds with real herbs and sea salt, not lab formulas. Or better yet, roast your own. Grab some olive oil, lemon, garlic, and Bragg's seasoning. It takes 5 minutes to prep, it costs less in the long run, and you'll actually know what you're eating. So ask yourself this: when a chicken tastes too good to be true for less than $5, is it really dinner or just another illusion dressed in crisp skin and corporate savings? Number 6, Tyson nuggets. Chicken nuggets used to mean joy on a plate, bite-sized comfort that made kids smile and gave parents 5 minutes of peace. Tyson knows this all too well. Their nuggets are everywhere, School lunches, grocery freezers, after practice dinners, and Sunday night we forgot to cook emergencies. They promise white meat, golden crunch, and that all-American flavor that says everything's fine. But dig past the breading, and what you find isn't just meat, it's a recipe that Europe won't even allow in the same room as a child. In 2025, the European Commission on Food Additives completed a sweeping review that put Tyson's nuggets under a very unflattering spotlight. At least 3 ingredients commonly found in these little golden bites are either restricted or outright banned across the European Union. TBHQ, tertiary butyl hydroquinone, sodium aluminum phosphate, and dimethyl polisiloxane. Sound like a chemistry set? That's because it practically is. TBHQ is used to preserve freshness and extend shelf life. But according to a 2024 study from the University of Copenhagen, long-term exposure can cause immune suppression and DNA damage. European regulators warn against using it in any food marketed toward children. In the US, Tyson is allowed to include up to 0.02% in each product. It's legal, sure, but does that make it safe? Then there's sodium aluminum phosphate, banned by the EU since 2008 for its link to aluminum buildup in the brain, which may contribute to cognitive decline in seniors. But Tyson still uses it in their nugget breading to maintain texture during flash freezing. And the final kicker, dimethyl polisiloxane. That's right, the anti-foaming agent found in frying oil and also in silly putty. It's technically safe in the US, but Europe demands full labeling and limits its use to industrial food production, not something served to toddlers with a side of ketchup. In March 2025, the Clean Food Coalition tested a dozen popular US nugget brands. Tyson had the highest overall load of synthetic additives, over 15 in some batches, including propylene glycol, a substance used in antifreeze and banned from kids' snacks in much of Europe. Think about that. Your child's dinner may legally contain ingredients that can't even pass border control overseas. How is this possible? Simple American labeling laws still allow companies to bury these additives under vague terms like spices, flavor enhancers, and stabilizers. So when a parent sees "made with white meat," they think they are doing the right thing, unaware that the real story is hiding in tiny type, behind FDA-sanctioned loopholes. Tyson isn't breaking laws. They're following the US Food Playbook, a set of rules designed around industry convenience, not child safety. No mandatory warning, no clear front label disclosure, just the illusion of wholesome food delivered in plastic trays and cafeteria lines. But here's what should stop us cold. If the EU won't serve these nuggets in any school lunch program, why are they standard fare in ours? If you're ready to make the switch, Applegate Naturals and Bell & Evans both offer low additive, EU-compliant nuggets. Even Tyson's own offshoot, Raisin Rooted, provides a cleaner alternative for those open to plant-based options. Or better yet, make them yourself. Just chicken, breadcrumbs, olive oil, and an air fryer. You'll skip the chemicals, and your grandkids will still clean the plate. So let's ask the only question that matters. Are we really feeding our children food? Or are we feeding them a lab experiment coated in breadcrumbs and sold as convenience? Number 7. Banquet chicken tenders. Banquet's frozen chicken tenders are more than a convenience. They're a lifeline in a red box for the working poor and fixed-income retirees. At under $1 per serving, they show up in food pantries, last-minute school dinners, and the late-night meals of exhausted caregivers scraping together one more hot plate. With labels promising 100% natural chicken and crispy breading, Banquet sells the image of simplicity, honesty, and affordability. But dig past the crunch, and what you're really biting into is a chemical cocktail so intense it would be turned away at most European borders. In February 2025, the Clean Label Project tested 10 of Banquet's best-selling frozen poultry items. Every single one was flagged for excessive levels of sodium phosphate, sodium nitrite, and sodium erythorbate, a triple whammy of additives that are either banned outright or heavily restricted in most of Europe. Why? Because they're tied to kidney strain, blood vessel damage, and a potential link to cancer. Not exactly what you expect from a budget-friendly dinner. Start with sodium phosphate. This compound is pumped into processed meats to lock in water and fake that juicy texture. But the European Food Safety Authority drew a hard line in 2023. Anything over 1,000 milligrams per kilogram isn't allowed, citing strong evidence of kidney damage and mineral imbalances, especially dangerous for older adults. Banquet's tenders. Independent lab results from November 2024 showed phosphate levels up to 1,900 milligrams per kilogram, nearly double the EU's ceiling. Then there's sodium nitrite. You've probably heard of it. It's the one that gives meats that fake pink color. But in 2025, France banned it from most processed meats after a landmark report linked nitrite consumption to a 23% rise in colorectal cancer risk among regular consumers. Europe now requires heavy warnings for any product containing it. In banquet tenders, it's just another line item tucked into the fine print. And finally, sodium erythorbate, a synthetic antioxidant that keeps meat looking fresh. Europe doesn't ban it entirely, but the purity standards are far stricter, and it's discouraged in products aimed at vulnerable populations. Meanwhile, in the US, Banquet is allowed to use all three ingredients and still call their tenders natural, thanks to a labeling system that's decades out of date and full of legal gray zones. The most disturbing part? A whistleblower complaint filed in 2024 with the USDA revealed that Banquet's Des Moines facility had altered its brining recipes to save costs. Translation: less chicken, more water, and higher chemical ratios. Internal documents leaked to Food Integrity now showed phosphate concentrations rising 22% between 2022 and late 2024. Banquet refused to comment, but silence speaks volumes. This isn't just a Banquet problem. It's the face of a broken food system, one that replaces protein with preservatives and sells it to people who have the least power to push back. When income drops, so does ingredient quality. And the result is a freezer full of processed meat that's loaded with substances many countries won't even allow near their citizens. For those ready to opt out, there are safer routes. Good & Gather, Target's house brand, offers tenders without phosphates or nitrites. Bell & Evans and Murray's sell frozen chicken using only sea salt and lemon juice for preservation. And if you're on a tight budget, buy raw chicken, slice into strips, and freeze your own tenders. A little flour and seasoning does wonders, and you'll know exactly what's going into your meal. Because this isn't just about food, it's about respect. And the question that lingers isn't what's for dinner, but what kind of dinner the system thinks you deserve when the money runs low. Maybe Europe isn't being picky. Maybe they just see what's coming and decided to stop it. If this shook you, imagine what's still hidden. Subscribe now. We expose what they won't tell, but you deserve to know.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our daily content. Now feel free to check out some of our newest and best videos currently showing on the screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.